Well, what are we doing today? We're visiting the Hopewell Cultural National Historic Park in southern Ohio and checking out the first mound culture that I've learned anything about. Not the last one that I've seen, though. We're going to get right into it. Let's roll the intro. Okay, that is the central site mound. I guess that's the biggest one that's still left. We're standing here, this area, that area over there with the posts, and this area right here are the remnants of what they believe to have been workshops. There's the old site farmhouse, and way down there is where I parked. So this is about a mile-long interpretive trail, and the signs say, stay on the trail. Well, welcome to Ohio. There's no real trail. I don't think a lot of people come out here. So I'm staying on the trail by heading in the general direction of the signs, and hopefully that's the right answer. It's beautiful out here. 8:30 in the morning, it's damp. Oh, and let me see if I can get us a little closer. You can see some smaller mounds just in front of the trees. They used to surround like 120-acre area around here, but because this was such fertile farmland, as with so many of these, they got plowed under, and a lot of the history was lost. So these are the Hopewell people, and when these were originally discovered, they were in use about 2,000 years ago for hundreds of years. And when they were first discovered, I think in the 1800s, the first ones that were discovered were primarily burial mounds. And then as time went on, they discovered some of the live activities like the workshops and so forth that I just showed you. And apparently it was a really vibrant culture, working with materials from, as far away as Florida and the Rocky Mountains. Partly I'm spinning around so I can get the leash unwrapped around me. I mean, just think about building mounds like this with hand tools, because that's what they had. So this is the second largest Hopewell mound. This is called the Site Pricer Mound, and it evolved through a sequence of events starting with the building of an oblong multi-room mortuary building about 2,000 years ago. That would have been at the bottom area here. And ceremonial leaders would cremate the bodies elsewhere and then inter them here in the mortuary building. They built earthen platforms where ashes were laid, and to a lesser extent, they placed extended corpses in log crypts. Some 122 men, women, and children were buried here, with unusual objects surrounding the remains. The mortuary building was then burned down, and the layering of the mound began. So when we look here, you can see the log crypts at the bottom, and then burials were actually mounded twice, and then the primary mound was built over the crypt, but over time, the crypt logs rotted away, and that caused the middle to sag, so the secondary mound layer up at the top represents the Hopewell's restoration of the mound. And in 1926 to 1928, archaeologist Henry Chatrone excavated the Site Pricer Mound, found several large effigy pipes, including one of a dog eating a human head, found thousands of pearls, implements, and ornaments of copper, mica, tortoiseshell, and silver in profusion. So we're going to continue on along this way. Kit is very happy this morning. He's bouncy and energetic. And we already went for a long walk before we started here, so that's okay. Not sure if this is going to show up, but looking at the Site Pricer mound in the middle, which we just looked at, is really dwarfed by all of the outline of the Site Pricer earthworks, which included over 2 miles of earthen walls enclosing all the ground where I'm standing. So we're kind of near the center of the geometric earthwork within the large irregular circle. Square earthwork is about 1,000 feet to your left. Okay. And the small circle is 1,000 feet to your right. You can actually see that one. And there's a trail that goes over there, so we're going to check that out. It also says the trail leading straight ahead takes you to Paint Creek, but I don't know what that means. Anyway, so there's these are other earthworks that have been found, and the patterns are kind of strikingly similar. Oh, and looking at each of the earthworks, you know, they've all got the square. The squares are all 27 acres in area. So they definitely had some knowledge of measurement and geometry. Pretty amazing. And look at this beautifully mown path to nowhere. Oh, look at these flowers. They're pretty. Some kind of purple daisy. Very pretty. It's not really a path to nowhere. It's taking me to Paint Creek. I tried to camp at 2 different locations along Paint Creek yesterday. And the first one was marked no trespassing, or no overnight camping, no parking overnight. And the second one was just creepy. It went down a steep hill, completely enclosed in forest, and everything was kind of, you know, slimy because it was pretty damp down there. And I just looked at it and I said, I'm not feeling this. And so I slept in the church parking lot. Well, I slept in Henry in the church parking lot. And it was fine. It was peaceful, small town, and only 3 miles away from where I am now. So we're going to get down here and get a look at Paint Creek. Yeah. Well, we get to come down and find out about the creek, but there's no trail that actually leads into the creek. However, the interpretive signs do say that this is still really clear water, and as a result, it's home to many species that would have difficulty thriving in less clean water. So that includes things like mussels and mayflies and caddisflies and a few other things like that. And some weird salamander that's the largest amphibian, I think, still living, to get up to 27 inches long. Go figure. So now we're going to head on back around. We don't have to retrace our steps completely, so that's nice. I always prefer seeing something different. So we're going to go straight ahead this way. So this is the Hopewell Mound Group, and basically we're standing on top of what would be about a 12-foot high wall, and then down there below is about 120 acres of plateau that was framed all the way around by these earthen walls. I haven't seen any of the mounds yet. I don't know if we're going to see mounds here, but that's what they look like. We saw some at the last place. Kit, you're on the wrong side of the barrier. Come on. So we're going to keep going. I have no idea how long this trail is. I already feel like I've done a goodly bit of it, and I ended up with more this morning than I really was planning for. So I think I'm going to be pretty sore by the end of the day. Look at him go! Go, Kit, go! He's such a good boy. Okay, this sign, which is difficult to read with the leaf shadow all over it, is titled Before the Bow and Arrow. And what's interesting about that to me, we're going to just keep walking through the woods here. It's a beautiful trail. What's interesting about that is I'm in southern Ohio, and the first time I heard about the atlatl, which I love saying, was when I was visiting the petroglyphs on the China Lake Naval Reserve in just outside of Ridgecrest, California. So I came across the atlatl again up in the Pacific Northwest last year in use among those native peoples. And here we are, as I said, in southern Ohio. So part of what's interesting about that to me is that basically the same hunting tool was developed all over the country by completely different groups of people. Want to see what else I got going on here? Whoops, I almost tripped. Look at this. It's the kit. It's the kit, and he's free range. I'm just letting him walk with me because he's doing a really good job of it, and I think it's good practice. And there is absolutely nobody around. At the first site I went to this morning, I was there for about 2 hours, and when I was coming out, somebody else was coming in, but nobody else had been there the entire time. And here, there were 3 ladies that did the paved part of the trail, which was less than a block long, because one was in a wheelchair, one was in a rollator, using a rollator, and the other one was the wheelchair pusher. So I chatted with them for a little while. That was nice. But then they turned around and went back to the parking lot and moved on. So, oh, and while we were standing there chatting at the end of the paved trail, guy came up with his little dog, walked out down the trail into the field, and then let his dog loose. So Kit and I went the opposite direction. He'll probably be gone long before we get back there. Look at this. This is interesting. I guess we're crossing a creek. And yeah, I am breathing a little bit hard because I've been moving along pretty well. Dry creek right now. And I have to admit, I'm getting a little bit tired. We've done a lot of hiking today. I got one more site I want to see. How you doing, Kit? Are you getting tired? You doing good? Okay, so the Hopewell people were woodland Indians. And they lived in this area when it was covered by old growth forest. Trunks reaching 80 feet high created a thick canopy that shaded the understory. People survived by harvesting the abundance of food that the forest resources and moderate climate offered. Along with hunting, they gathered berries, wild grapes, roots, and leaves directly from the forest. Trees such as hickory, chestnut, and walnut provided a plentiful crop of nuts each fall and were used as a rich source of protein throughout the winter. It's thought that the Hopewell homes were constructed of wooden posts, large sections of tree bark, and fibers woven into mats. Post holes have been found that indicate they were sometimes 40 feet in length and could have housed several families. Walnuts, maybe? I think? Can't remember. I used to know what all the nuts looked like in the east because I used to go out and hunt nuts and gather and, preserve and prepare. When I lived in upstate New York, I learned how to garden effectively, and basically I grew or gathered everything we ate except meat and wheat. It's a lot of fun, but a lot of work. All right, what do we got here? An engineering marvel. Yeah, so basically they don't know why they surrounded their home areas with the earthen walls, but they did some pretty cool geometry, and of the 5 sites in this area, each of them has a square site that was 27 acres, which I'm guessing would have had some huge significance, but who knows what. How about this, guys? For those of us that spend all our time in the West, look, it's a deciduous tree forest. Very cool. Look through the trees. We got a little lake down there, guys. Very cool. And now we're heading downhill. We actually climbed up pretty high before we started into this forest. But I imagine we're going to do some more climbing. Now I wonder if that's part of the earthworks right over there. You can kind of see a well-constructed ridge. I'm betting it is. All right, straight ahead of us here is Hopewell Mound 25. Largest one discovered at Hopewell, 500 feet long and 30 feet high at its peak. 1.5 million basket loads of earth were needed to build it, all hand carried. The mound was excavated by archaeologists in the late 1800s and early 1900s, disturbed by looters and diminished by farming to the size you see today. Its large size and contents discovered during historic excavations suggest that Mound 25 was important during Hopewell times. What kind of ceremonies went on here? Fire pits, burials, other features have been discovered, so it's probable that rituals, some related to the dead, took place here. So, here's an estimated floor plan of Mound 25. Very cool. Alright, so I'm at a crossroads here. This one goes up and over. This one goes down and around. I see another sign over there. I'm going to take a look at all trails. Okay, so straight out ahead of us is Mound 2, and you can see, you know, it's a little bit mounded up, but not very much. It's really just a remnant of what it was originally, but this is kind of cool. This huge cache of flint, here's kind of a better view of it, just made of Wyandotte chert from Indiana, was found in Mound 2 in front of you. Perhaps these were gifts brought to the site by visitors from outside the local area. So in this mound, over 8,000 flint discs were found neatly stacked on their sides in 2 layers, as seen in this illustration by Warren Moorhead, an early archaeologist. So it was much bigger originally than it is right now. All right, no wonder I'm tired. See that big hill right there? That's part of the earthworks that I took a picture from, or I took some video of, facing in this direction. So facing out across here into this, I think they said it was a 120-acre field. And we've just walked all the way around and through that forest and came out way down there someplace. And now we're crossing back over toward the parking area, I hope. I hope, because I'm pretty tired. This is a much longer hike than I was planning on, and there was nothing to indicate how long it was. But the breeze is picking up. Kit's been having a wonderful time. We're all good. There are a total of 24 mounds that were constructed here at Mound City Group approximately 2,000 years ago. 22 remain today. At least one of the missing ones is outlined by post holes from the archaeologists were able to discover. But interestingly, in June of 1917, the War Department took possession of the Mound City Group mounds, and President Woodrow Wilson had a huge commitment to fight Germany in World War I, so the nation needed places to train its troops. And as 2,000 buildings were feverishly built, the Mound City Group became part of such a place. It became Camp Sherman. 5,000 men raced to complete construction in less than 3 months, erecting a building every 20 minutes. They finished just in time for the first draftees to arrive on September 5th, 1917. During construction fury, local archaeologists urged Army officials to save the mounds. They convinced the camp commander to reorient one barrack to avoid destroying the largest mound. But the placement of other barracks, utilities, lines, roads, all of that stuff severely damaged or obliterated the remaining mounds. So, I don't know how well this is going to show up, but this is what the Mound City Group looked like shortly before the construction of Camp Sherman, and for the previous 70 years it had underwent cultivation, farming and so forth. And then the footprint of Camp Sherman covered 2,000 acres, and Chillicothe's population swelled from 16,000 to 60,000 people with the Army's arrival. And then, in the 1920s, amid Camp Sherman's barracks, the Ohio Archaeological and Historical Society excavated 12 of the Mound City Group mounds, and their efforts ignited a push to restore and preserve the site we know today. I'm finding all of this pretty fascinating. Think about how old the culture was and what they managed to do with what they had available. This was roughly the same time that Romans were building the Colosseum, for example. And you don't see mounds in the West, and I'm guessing that that's because, it's mostly granite, and this is mostly soil. So you can see they've got like kind of a fence row built out of earth, and of course all done by hand with pretty primitive tools. So don't walk on the mounds. That means you get. And we're going to start right here. They're calling this Mica Splendor. With the building of Camp Sherman, the Army leveled this mound, Mound 13, to 3 feet above ground and built a barrack over it. In 1920, Ohio archaeologists, led by William Mills, excavated the mound and were astonished to uncover the cremated remains of 20 burials. Some were on raised platforms with an array of unusual objects. Surprise find here was a raised rectangular grave covered with sheets of mica, an exotic mineral not found in Ohio. Atop the mica were cremated remains of 4 people. Obviously, that was quite a bit of honor. The many sheets of mica found here were mined in North Carolina mountains and brought here perhaps as gifts or offerings. This is part of the Erie and Ohio Canal that was moved here from about a mile away. Interestingly, the canal was built directly through the middle of one of the earthworks. That's not part of this Mound City group, but yeah, and then there was a devastating flood in 1913. Oh, wait a minute, where have we heard that before? Where was that? That was Dayton. That destroyed enough of the canal that it wasn't worth rebuilding at that point because railroads had made it to the area, and so the canal was less needed than it had been originally in the mid-1800s for moving goods and so forth to the east. It's another beautiful path through a forest. Yeah.